atonement is the way to peace. You cannot abide in peace unless you accept the atonement, because the atonement is the way to peace. The reason is very simple, and so obvious that it is often overlooked. That is because the ego is afraid of the obvious, since obviousness is the essential characteristic of reality. I'll tell you, the kingdom of heaven that confronts you is obviously the kingdom of heaven. It really is obviously the kingdom of heaven. Yet, you cannot overlook the essential characteristic of reality. You cannot overlook it unless you are not looking. When you are so sure of the nature and character of your boss, or your child, or your parent, or anybody else, you are not looking. You're closing your eyes, in so many words, and projecting your picture out there upon them. If you were looking with love, if you were looking undefendedly, if you were looking without interposing anything between yourself and what you're seeing, the godness of what you're seeing would be so obvious to you that your mind would be transformed. And your behavior would change. All this is describing is the willingness to look and hesitate before you interpose your pre-existing definition about what you're looking at. And just remember for a moment, that one desires to experience perfect peace because perfect peace is the Father's will for them. And it's the Father's will for them because the Father has placed it in them. The Father placed it in them because they are the son or daughter of the Father. And He recognizes Himself in them. And His recognition of Himself in them declares the completed fact of their divinity. Just as it does with you. When you allow that shift to occur in you, you have succeeded in hesitating before applying your definition. And you've laid the groundwork for the experience of that truth to infill you. Listen to this. It is perfectly obvious that if the Holy Spirit looks with love on all He perceives, He looks with love on you. His evaluation of you is based on His knowledge of what you are. Not what you think you are, but what you really are. And so, He evaluates you truly. Now, that's what the Holy Spirit does with you. That's what that which is nothing more than your right mind does with you. That's what your right mind does with you. Your right mind loves you. It doesn't tell you how awful you are. It feeds back to you your worth, not the worthlessness you think is the characteristic of you. Now, if the Holy Spirit or any awakened brother or the Father does that with you, your task is to do that with each other. because that's the only thing that will heal or transform. His evaluation of you, the Holy Spirit's, is based on his knowledge of what you are, and so he evaluates you truly. And this evaluation must be in your mind because he is. And he is in your mind because he is your right mind. Now, the ego is also in your mind because you have accepted it there. Well, I'll say that you not only have accepted it there, you made it up there. You created the ego, which is nothing but a collection of definitions and beliefs about yourself that you made up when you said, Father, I'd rather see things my way. So the ego is also in your mind because you have accepted it there. Its evaluation of you, however, is the exact opposite of the Holy Spirit's, because the ego does not love you. It is unaware of what you are. Unlike the Holy Spirit, who knows exactly what you are, really. The ego does not know what you are. Why? Well, the ego is a denial of what you are. The ego is you using your mind to say, I am divorced from my Father, and I do not have a source other than myself. I am claiming myself as my source, and I am going to be God now. And I am going to define everything now, you see. The ego is unaware of what you are and wholly mistrustful of everything it perceives because its own perceptions are so shifting. The ego is instability itself. It therefore knows nothing trustworthy. And its existence seems to arise out of the goal to bring everything into order. The ego is therefore capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst. I'm going to stop here for a second. This is a favorite, or has become a favorite, quotable quote from the Course. The ego is therefore capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst. And someone sees somebody behaving badly and says, yeah, well, what can you expect? The ego is therefore capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst. And nothing else is said. So it seems to validate the existence of the ego and its character and its nature and its method of operation. And it just leaves it hanging there as though it's a declaration of something important. The ego is therefore capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst. But, see, we're going to continue the sentence. But the ego isn't real. The ego is a sense of self made up out of imagination. And so its suspiciousness and its viciousness, having no real source, can have no real effect. And so I do not need to be afraid of it, whether it's in its suspicious mode or in its vicious mode. Or you can finish the sentence by saying, the ego is therefore capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst, but my mind is part of God, and I am very holy. Or so and so has acted viciously. Well, what can you expect? The ego is suspicious at the least and vicious at the worst. But that individual's mind is part of God, and he is very holy. She is very holy. You see, you don't leave it dangling in the air, unchallenged or uncorrected. You don't leave it there without bringing the truth into the picture that says this one who appears to be behaving suspiciously or viciously, this behavior doesn't reflect what they are. That one's mind is part of God, and he or she is very holy. You see what I'm saying here? By correcting a statement about error, by correcting a statement about that which isn't true, you take away its sting. You take away its seeming capacity to cause you harm, and you also take away its capacity to be successfully applied to the person who seems to be behaving badly. Because you lift them out of that definition of the ego. You're not an ego. And you're not your ego, the one you've made up. And your brother isn't an ego. And isn't whatever definitions he or she has made up about herself. Not only that, they aren't that, but their mind is part of God. And they are very holy. You see? What if everyone got up tomorrow morning, went through their day, going to work, driving the freeway, buying lunch, doing whatever their activities were during the day? What if all day long, everyone, just in their mind, was looking at someone else and saying, no matter what their behavior, but that one's mind is part of God, and he or she is very holy? What if that was the active acknowledgement that everyone was giving to everyone else throughout the day tomorrow? Do you think it wouldn't be transformational? Do you think that it wouldn't become embodied as a visible change in the world? Do you think that without everyone pointing out each other's flaws and judging them for it and trying to make them feel guilty for it, that wouldn't cause everyone to start behaving in a new way? The absence of what everyone does do would be a demonstration of hesitation. And instead of bouncing off of your predetermined, loved perceptions and definitions of everything, you wish to see God there. You wished to see the evidence of love there. You know, I gave you the two prayers. I wish to see the evidence of love, and I wish to be the evidence of love. Now, I wish to see the evidence of love doesn't mean looking at somebody who's behaving badly and say, man, I wish to see the evidence of love there. I wish they would change. I would like to see them behaving nicely. That isn't what it means that I wish to see the evidence of love. What it means is, I wish to see them without looking through a pre-existing definition I am holding about them. I wish to see there, not I wish to get from there. I wish to see there what I know is the truth about them. I wish not to see my misperception of them. I wish to see what revelation, insight has uncovered to me about them, which I am seeing there in spite of the way I used to interpret their behavior and in spite of the way they see themselves. Do you see what I'm saying? When you say, I wish to see the evidence of love, it's you engaged in an act of projecting the true consciousness of them there, instead of getting hung up on your perceptions of what's going on, based on your own tiny, fearful frame of mind, coupled with their behavior that is based on their tiny, troubled frame of mind. To say, I wish to see the evidence of love there, doesn't mean, I wish they would change. It means, I wish to see them in a new way. I wish to extend to them whatever consciousness of truth God will reveal to me. You see? It's far different from saying, gee, it would really be nice if they were a little more pleasant to be around. That's not wishing to see the evidence of love. There's no gift in it. I wish to see the evidence of love means you are going to take the proactive step, we'll say, of insisting upon asking for the vision that will let you see or grasp the meaning of the fact that if there's anything there at all where your brother or sister is, it has to be God. The moment you do that, the lens through which you're looking shifts. And you are looking for something different. You are looking to see the evidence of love there. You're looking to see the more of what's really there than what you had seen or even what your brother thinks is there and calls himself or herself. Are you getting what I'm saying? To wish to see the evidence of love is not a wish to stand in receipt of something. It's a wish to make a gift of a new way of seeing that is gathered not from your memory, but a willingness and an expressed desire to have the Holy Spirit reveal to you what is truly there, just as the Holy Spirit, your right mind, looks at you and sees what's truly there and extends it to you and does not believe what you think you are and all the feelings you have associated with what you think you are. And that's why your communion with the Holy Spirit is always healing. And that's why the Holy Spirit can turn everything, every situation, to your advantage. You have the opportunity with your brothers and sisters to be that which turns whatever is happening in their life to their advantage. So the ego is therefore capable of suspiciousness at best and viciousness at worst. Not a great capacity in terms of capabilities, is it? That is its range. That's all. That is its range. It cannot exceed it because of its uncertainty. And it's incapable of achieving certainty. And, it says here, it can never go beyond it, because it can never be certain. Well, what does all of that mean, Viciousness and suspiciousness and blah, blah, blah. It means that if you're engaging in the practice of memory, if you're engaging in the constant rehearsal of an imagination, you are being nothing, doing nothing, accomplishing nothing. Even when it can be called suspicious or malicious. It's accomplishing nothing because, why? Because it doesn't express the Father's will. And the Father's will is what constitutes your will, really. Anything else you engage in is a bunch of nothing. No matter how seriously you take it, and no matter how hard you are working on yourself to wake up. So no matter how many dynamic words you might be able to apply to the ego, suspicious, malicious, greedy, blah, blah, blah. You're talking about nothing but a bunch of hot air. You're talking about nothing. The choice is between nothing and something. The Holy Spirit, which is nothing more than your right mind, and nothing. The ego. Nothing. You then have two conflicting, evaluations of yourself in your minds, and they cannot both be true. You do not yet realize how completely different these evaluations are, because you do not understand how lofty the Holy Spirit's perception of you really is. It's another way of saying how lofty that which is nothing more than your right mind is. He, the Holy Spirit, your right mind, is not deceived by anything you do, because he never forgets what you are. Well, I'll tell you, you go through your day and constantly forget who you are, and constantly forget who your brother is, and you believe what's left, which is whatever you've made up, and whatever they've invited you to make up. The ego, continuing, is deceived by everything you do, even when you respond to the Holy Spirit. Because at such times, its confusion increases. When you talk to the Holy Spirit, when you have communion with the Holy Spirit, the ego really gets confused, you see. the confusion increases. Why? Because it's losing your attention. It's losing your devotion. And it doesn't know what to do about it. As I've said before, the only thing the ego, talking as though it were something real, the only thing the ego can't defend itself against is disregard. And when it can't defend itself, it's in a great state of confusion. The ego is, therefore, particularly likely to attack you when you react lovingly, because it has evaluated you as unloving, and you are going against its judgment. Now, it's very easy to read that and interpret it as though it's talking about someone else's ego. The ego, someone else's ego, is therefore particularly likely to attack you when you react lovingly, because it has evaluated you as unloving, and you are going against its judgment. But your very own ego does this to you. How on earth do you think you could be distracted from coming back home if it weren't for the fact that this sense of self that you have made up, which has no real existence, must keep you in a state of confusion and an experience of vulnerability, that it can convince you you must attack and bring into order continuing, the ego will begin to attack your motives as soon as they become clearly out of accord with its perception of you. Just try to be the presence of love. Just try to engage in trust and see how quickly the ego presents itself to you and tries to convince you that you're out of your mind, that you are unworthy, that you are worthless, and that what you think means nothing significant, and undermines any semblance of a sense of integrity that you might have begun to feel. That's the way it works. So don't always be looking at someone else's ego and saying, yeah, of course it's going to attack me. This sense of an independent selfhood that you embrace as being you is itself a denial of what you really are. And so it can't see who you really are. And when something in you begins to have a glimmer of what you really are, and your attention shifts to that and away from the ego does not like that. It feels threatened. And so it calls your worth into question and tries to engage you in becoming defensive. Again, the ego will begin to attack your motives as soon as they become clearly out of accord with its perception of you. This is when it will shift abruptly from suspiciousness, or you could say being ill at ease, or experiencing an undercurrent of uncomfortableness, from suspiciousness to viciousness, since its uncertainty is increased. Yet it is surely pointless to attack in return. What can this mean? Attacking in return. What can this mean? Except that you are agreeing with the ego's evaluation of what you are.